Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement for men who refuse to settle for less in their families, in their focus, and their future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm honored that you've chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time, with me today. Now let's get into it. Well, welcome to the Dad Nation podcast for another powerful episode. And listen, I know I say this every time, but I'm so excited about this conversation. We're going to talk with Bart Berkey. Okay, now this is a guy I met through a mutual connection, David Meltzer. If you're listening to this by some chance, listen, shout out to you. All right, love this. He's such a networker. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about Bart because we've just recently just met and got to know each other a little bit, but just genuinely feel a great connection. And I know this is going to be a powerful conversation for all you listeners out there. Okay, so listen, Bart Berkey is a former global executive with the Ritz-Carlton, where he spent 16 years inside of one of the most respected service cultures in the world. Now he is the founder of Most People Don't. He's a keynote speaker, an author, a podcast host, and the creator of Humanality, which is a framework built around helping people feel cared for, valued, seen, and heard. And publicly, Bart is known for leadership, service, excellence, and human connection. And privately, his story includes panic attacks, anxiety, depression, and a powerful journey of learning that strength is not the absence of struggle, it's the courage to stop pretending. And I love this, and I can't wait to dig into it, Bart. So listen, thank you so much for being here on the show today.
No, I can't wait, Mitchell. The previous conversations were so meaningful, and I know this one, because we're able to share it with all of your listeners and viewers, it's going to be even more deep and even more meaningful. So thank you. I'm grateful.
Yeah, and you are the listener for the most part. You're the target demographic. You're a high performing man who's looking to succeed in all areas of his life. What I love about this is you're also a podcaster, you're a speaker. So I love interviewing podcasters and speakers because there's never a shortage of things to talk about. But I want to dig into your past a little bit and help the listeners really kind of understand where you came from and sort of the challenges you face, because this has been a recurring theme on the show, is that it's not all about just strength and being super macho. And we all have challenges, we all have stress, we all have worries, anxieties, and that's not weak. That's having the wisdom to acknowledge that is massive. Okay, so you spent 16 years at the Ritz-Carlton helping organizations create unforgettable experiences for their guests. And so my question to you is, but what experience was life trying to create in you that you kept missing at that time? Because they were going through a lot, right? What was it that you were missing when you were creating this for everyone else? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I think a lot of people fall into the trap. We give so much to others. With Ritz-Carlton, it was always over-delivering for our guests, for our clients, and often for each other. But probably what was missing, it's taking care of yourself and thinking, what can I do to make sure that I'm over-delivering for myself? I've never been asked that question, Mitchell, so very brilliant. That's something that I think what I was missing. And it wasn't until the pandemic, and I'll share this with you. I had a heart attack right before the pandemic. And there's a story that goes along prior to that, which we can certainly weave in if appropriate. But I had a heart attack, and it was, I think, the universe, God, creator, whatever you believe, telling me that things were not right in my own head, in my own mind. And I intentionally scheduled the surgery with the hope, believe it or not, with the hope. It was just routine nose surgery. I had broken my nose when I was a kid, out of body experience again, which we might touch upon. But I scheduled the surgery thinking I can finally relax. I have the excuse to be able to relax, go home and recover from nose surgery on the couch with my dog for a week and not be stressed about work. That was my thinking going into no surgery. Well, what happened during recovery, my heart had something else in mind and decided to attack me. A massive heart attack. They took me from the surgical center to the hospital, performed surgery. I'm good. It was 8 years, 7 years later. I'm good. I'm healthy. I'm doing all the right things. But I think that was truly the universe saying, you got to stop and you got to take care of yourself. A few months after the heart attack, um, pandemic hit, and we were all given choices. My role as a global sales executive with Ritz-Carlton was in jeopardy. Many of my team members were losing their jobs. Mitch and I'll never forget, they approached me and they said, look, Bart, if you want, you can take the package, right? I was old enough to take the package, not really a retirement package, but it's a little bit of a bump to give you a runway if you want to do something different. And I thought to myself, yes, I want to do something different. Loved Ritz-Carlton, loved my team, loved my customers, loved over delivering, but it was a nudge to be able to do something for me. And what I found was I wrote a book about 10 years ago called Most People Don't and Why You Should. I'm very passionate about it. And it's stories about when you take extra effort, it makes a difference. It makes people feel good, right? One act of kindness a day for 7 days in a row increases your personal happiness by 8%. But no one was really talking about it from a sense of my experience. In hospitality, that's all we did. We just showed kindness. So I decided that I wanted to go and speak full time on Most People Don't, and had done so sporadically when I was with Ritz-Carlton. I would just ask for a day off that was not competitive. May I go speak to this group? Yes. And I really liked it. And especially during the pandemic, Mitchell, people needed to hear good messages. So first year of the pandemic, I think I did 85 virtual presentations, right? Home studio, most of them not paid, but it was powerful, right? And one of the stories was, so many people were calling me and saying, Bart, I lost my job. I was told I was redundant. And honestly, Mitchell, I had never even thought of that word as it relates to a human being. So I had to look it up. How could a human being be redundant? And it really bothered me. It really upset me. And I thought, I want to create a story, presentation, which I did via Zoom, called You Are Remarkable, Not Redundant. And we had thousands of people view it and share it and share it. So that was the meaning. That was the impetus of, during Ritz-Carlton, I probably was not taking care of myself. The pandemic made me pause to think about, this is one life. Like right now, if your computer crashed, if everything went down for your podcast perspective, that could happen. That could happen. And my message there is like, don't wait, right? Your computer could crash at any moment. You could have a heart attack at any moment. Don't wait to do what you want to do and what you believe you should be doing. And so now I'm doing exactly that. I'm going around the world. My wife is the co-founder, going around the world, sharing good messages about kindness and gratitude and taking the extra effort in this thing called humanality. Really long answer, Mitchell. Thank you for listening the entire time.
No, it's good. It's good. Now, because you know what, Bart, what you're saying and your journey has been the same journey of hundreds of guys that I've worked with and spoken with, because it's part of our masculine nature as men, as career-driven, high-performing men. When you think about the essence of the masculine, it's not driven by emotion and nurturing relationships like it is for women, but it is driven by accomplishments, by excellence, by being on purpose, and so it's nature, but it's also nurture, because we live in a world that says, well, culture values men by what they can do, what they can build. That's why the second question we ask each other is, after what's your name, is what do you do? Right? Because that's the measuring stick, unfortunately. And so many men find themselves in that situation where they work themselves sometimes to a heart attack, or whatever the situation is, until there's this massive wake up call. And it's unfortunate that we get there. That was my story too, Bart. And my listeners will know, I was We were 100 grand in debt, 60 pounds overweight, on the verge of losing my wife, drinking every day, and I was at a funeral, singing at the funeral of this wealthy man. And the minister asked the congregation a question.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Are you living a life worthy of imitation? If you were to die today, would you be proud of the legacy that you left?" And here I am standing, playing this closing song, trying to choke out the lyrics, staring at the casket of this other man, and faced with the legacy that I was going to leave, that if this were my funeral, no one would want to imitate my life. I have nothing to show for it. And it was this powerful turning point. It became this catalyst for everything. And it sounds like to me, for you, that the pandemic and the heart attack was sort of your turning point. Is that correct?
Yeah, it certainly was. And if we go back a little bit before that, if I can share, Mitchell, when I was 12 years old, I basically had an out of body experience during, again, a routine nose surgery. I broke my nose at a track meet. I was high jumping. I was not very good at form. I brought my knee up to my nose, smashed it to this side of my face, rushed me to the hospital. I get there before my parents, and the doctors say, "This is the worst break we've ever seen. We need to do surgery now." Never been to a hospital before, never had surgery, scared out of my mind, walk into the operating room, jump up on the table, and I tease, this is back in the 1800s when they didn't have medicine to calm you down, but they did not give me any medicine to calm me down. And I lay down on the table, lights everywhere, people coming in with masks. They started giving me medicine to knock me out, Mitchell, and it doesn't work.
Mm.
So I hear them say, "He's out, let's get started." Guess what? I wasn't out. I was still here, but I couldn't move. Imagine that sensation. It just freaks me out even today. My body was on the operating table, but my conscience was underneath. Couldn't move, couldn't tell them I'm still here. I could still hear them. I could hear surgical instruments. It was just the worst. And when I recovered from that, I found out that they did not even perform the surgery proper. My nose was still broken, still had a deviated septum. And I said to myself at that time, that's the worst experience I've ever had in my whole life. I would rather be anywhere, but getting nose surgery again, anywhere. The story goes on. When I get home, Mitchell, because of that out of body experience, I then became fearful of doctors, of nurses, of losing control, of surgery, of dying, and even to the point where, and it still breaks my heart to even say this, at 12 years old, I would have to say to my parents to get their affirmation before going to bed, "I'll see you tomorrow, right?
Mm.
I'll see you tomorrow, right, Mom? Right before I go to bed." And that was basically, if they said yes, then they weren't lying to me. I would not die in my sleep. Can you imagine? 12 years old, right?
Yeah.
12 years old. From 12 to 18, I became into that routine. "I'll see you tomorrow, right?" And what I realized, Mitchell, is that back then, they did not know what panic attacks were. They did not know what anxiety was. And I'll never forget my father looking me in the eye when I was having a panic attack. And he said, "No, you're fine. Your eyes are clear. Just drink some orange juice and go do some push-ups," or some really silly remedy. And I like to share that story because the element of panic attacks and losing control stayed with me, and it's still with me to this day. And I'm not afraid to talk about it. I like to talk about it because it shows someone that is a TEDx speaker and a podcast host and speaks in front of thousands of people could have panic attacks. Yes, I'm afraid to go into a mall. I'm afraid to go to the back of a department store because what if I would pass out and no one was there to help me? Then I could pass out and be embarrassing and then I would die. What if I'm driving through a tunnel and what if I have a panic attack and I pass out? Then I'm going to crash the car and then I'm going to die. Like all of these horrific things, but they didn't know what to do back then to help you. Not at all. I remember my mother even, when I was going away at a volleyball tournament, I said, "Mom, I'm afraid of passing out and dying on this trip. We're staying in someone's home. We're staying in a hotel, whatever the case is." And she bet me $20 that I would not pass out and die. Like that was the remedy. And God bless my parents, lovely people. My mother's still around, 9 years old, lovely people, but they did not know how to help. So I'm living my life afraid of certain things that most people wouldn't be afraid of until I met my wife. And my wife said this one simple statement. She said, you know, Bart, you probably don't need to live like this.
Mm.
What do you mean, Terry? There's probably people that you could talk to. There's probably medicine that could help you. There's probably therapy that could, you probably don't need to live like that. And Mitchell, and to your listeners, like, that saved my life. So I went to people to understand the chemical imbalance and the fear that I had because of my out of body experience. And this is what they did. They gave me happy pills. And so I have little happy pills that I travel with me. My son bought me this necklace. It's always with me. And it has allowed me to be able to go anywhere and do anything. Because if I know I don't feel well, I can take a happy pill and not even know the medical name of it, but it calms me down. It calms me down. And it wasn't until the doctor said this. I went in and she said, well, do you need a refill on any of your medicine? Do you need a refill on your happy pills? I said, no. And she said, well, how many have you taken since I last saw you 6 months ago? And I said, one. I said, I don't want to get addicted to these things. And she said, Bart, if you needed to, you could take one every day. You could probably take 3 every day and not get addicted to it. As soon as she said that, that gave me the freedom of thinking, and it's part of it I knew was psychosomatic, that I could go anywhere. As long as I had my happy pills with me, I could go anywhere and do anything because it was going to calm me down. And Mitchell, the honest truth is this. I don't know right now if this is full. It could be empty of happy pills. There could be a Tic Tac in here. I don't know, but it has given me the courage and the confidence to realize that I can go anywhere and I can do anything. And if I would happen to pass out, there are people that are kind around the world that probably would help me because I would help someone in need. Right? But so it's this whole element of losing control as a kid and not having anyone to help you. Now I'm at the point where I'm trying to help as many people as possible. I'm trying to help heal people. I'm trying to be an advocate for people. I'm trying to share stories that will make them feel better, get better, and do better because I never had it.
Yeah.
I never had that growing up. So it's now is my chance to help.
Hey, brother, let me ask you something. And I want you to really think about this. Are you winning at work, but quietly kind of losing ground at home? Maybe you're the guy people rely on. You stay calm in meetings. You carry that pressure all day. And you kind of wear that like a badge of honor. But maybe when you walk through the front door at home, your wife feels distant. Conversations feel shorter. And instead of being excited to come home, maybe work feels easier. Nothing is broken, but something is slowly drifting. And if you're telling yourself right now, I'm going to fix this when things slow down, or I'm going to fix this when things get easier, if you're honest with yourself, you already know they won't slow down. They won't get easier. Well, the high-performance husband is for men who are done coasting. It's for men who want to win at home like they win at work. You see, this isn't therapy. It's not about fixing your wife. It's not for men who want quick hacks. It's for men who want to be calm under pressure, strong in their body, clear in their thinking, and to become the man that your wife and kids look up to with pride. So if you're listening to this and you know that what got you here won't get you where you want to go, I want you to go to dadnationco.com/accelerator or click the link in the show notes below, and then you can apply to join this accelerator and join myself and many other like-minded men who are leveling up in their home, in their health, and their happiness. They're winning all year long. It's a 12-month mentorship. It's going to change your life. All right, now let's jump back into the episode. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And, it's interesting. You kind of segued into a couple areas that I wanted to go in this conversation. Number one is I love that statement that your wife said, you probably don't need to live this way. It's so classic of our wives to be that external source to speak into our lives. My wife is the same in so many ways. Question for you about that. Why do you think it took hearing those words from someone you loved before you were willing to ask for help? Why did it take that long, and why did it need to be heard, do you think?
Yeah, pride, masculinity, lack of vulnerability, thinking I'm smart enough, I'm emotionally intelligent enough, I can figure this out on my own. I know panic attacks aren't real. I know that if I go into the back of a department store and something happens, I won't die. I know that. So it was this persona.
Hmm.
I don't need help. I can handle it on my own. And that's what, right, Mitchell, that you talk about and the examples that you shared even before we hit record. There are so many men out there that believe they need to be a certain way. The head of the household, they need to be a man. Well, you can be a man and be vulnerable. You can be a man and be kind. You can be a man and have issues. You can be a man and ask for help. There's nothing wrong with that. And thank goodness there's people like you, Mitchell, and Dad Nation podcast that are helping to share the ideas of vulnerability. It's okay to ask for help. Please ask for help, man. There are so many people out there that can help you, that can be connected together.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked, Mitchell. I'm shocked at how many people need help and don't ask for it.
Yeah. Well, and specifically as it relates to men, I think there's some implied martyrdom or some implied nobility to martyrdom. It's like, well, I'm going to die. I'm going to fall on the sword for my family. I'm going to meet their needs. I'm going to die to everything I need to make everything great for them. And that's fine and good until, you're burned out, you're stressed out, you got a bad health diagnosis, you have a heart attack, whatever, right? So the question is, is it important to serve your family? For sure. Is it important for you to love them and lead them? Yes. Is it important for you to also take care of yourself? 100%, which is largely kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah. So right, the nobility of what you're saying, the
Yeah.
nobility of I can't be vulnerable, the nobility of I need to fall on the sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and I think really what we're talking about, another kind of conversation we're having, especially as it relates to men, is something that I see because there's a difference in knowledge and wisdom, right? You might have heard this quote before, but knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing that it doesn't belong in a fruit salad. You know what I mean? And and that's the thing, right? We all know that we should take care of ourselves. We all know some of these things, but we sometimes we lack the wisdom and
Yeah.
maturity to be like, maybe I should just talk to somebody about this. Our ego gets in the way, or our pride gets in the way of that wisdom that's trying to poke through to be like, hey, man, maybe you should reach out to a brother, right? Which is great because I think this is where I wanted to go with you because this is a lie that so many men believe, is that if you're struggling with anxiety, fear, or depression, that you're somehow weak, right? When did you first realize, Bart, that vulnerability wasn't the opposite of strength, but that it was actually part of it? Like, what was that moment for you?
Wow. I think probably being um wow, interesting. Um I can share one immediate the one of the freshest moments or the earliest moments is that this goes back to elementary school because I think I always had the propensity to be kind to other people, but the vulnerability part probably came about in elementary school. It was recess, we were all playing kickball, and it was my day to be the captain of the kickball team. And I could pick first whoever I wanted, any of my classmates. And I picked Betsy. I didn't pick Kenny. I didn't pick Eric. I didn't pick Matt, Roger, or Julie. I picked Betsy. And Betsy was a red haired girl that wore a dress every single day. I don't think she even grew up owning a pair of tennis shoes. No one ever picked Betsy first. I chose to pick Betsy first. Elementary school, probably third grade. I vividly remember it. And my buddies, Kenny and Eric and Tim, made fun of me. They made fun of me, but I stood my ground. I was vulnerable to say, look, Betsy never gets picked first. I wanted to do something nice for Betsy. And they figured it out later. But I think that was one part of being vulnerable at a very young age. And that probably then progressed into vulnerability in leadership. When I started off in the hotel business and I was a director of sales and marketing, letting people know that I did not know everything, that I
Mm,
would do my best, that I would listen to them, but that I did not know everything. And
mm,
sometimes these people had been doing it longer than I was. I just was assigned the role to be their leader. So I think that that was probably the second time when I was
Mm.
leading people to let them know that I'm not perfect, that I'm not perfect.
Yeah, it's so valuable. Um, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the success, in business versus the success at home, because there's a lot of crossover here between what I speak about and what I specialize in is of course what you talk about as well. Because one thing that I constantly see is men, a lot of these career driven men, they know how to lead companies, right? They get that. They get KPIs, projections, strategies, leading board meetings, all that stuff. But when it comes to knowing how to lead conversations at home,
Mm,
this is where they wrestle, right? So
mhm.
why do you think that we're teaching men how to build businesses, but not how to build emotionally healthy families? Because there's such a gap in my experience here.
Yeah.
And there's so much training and education and equipping and all the stuff about business, but there's not a lot for, when you want to win at home as well. Why do you think there is that gap?
Yeah, I think it's historical and it's the nature of our society more than anything else. Mitchell, just thinking about it, there needs to be courses, and it's something that you are teaching, right? Leadership at home. What does that look like? And just as you would be available, if you're leading a team, you would be available, and I use this term available to be interrupted, right? You're going to sit down with your team members, you're going to look them in the eye, you're going to ask them questions, you're going to be present, you're going to take notes. That's great. That's great for building a business. But what about this same thing when you get home? Are you attentive to your wife, to your children? Are you asking questions? Are you where your feet are? Are
Mm,
you are you seeing them? Are you listening to them? Are you making them feel cared for, valued, heard, and seen, which is the humanality topic that we discuss? I don't think that happens often. And it probably goes back to what you said, Mitchell. There's such a desire and a demand in society for climbing the corporate ladder and doing more and giving more and building more and getting more profitability and building your bank account, and then by the time you get home, you're probably just exhausted. And if you're not exhausted, I think there's some men out there that continue to go to their home office and focus on building, 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 building more without that balance. In so many people, you'll hear this that when they're at work, they might be thinking about home. And when they're at home, they're thinking about work. There really needs to be a separation. And it goes back to, right, the leadership lessons at home. That's what I think the world needs. And thank goodness, Mitchell, for people like you and for the Dad Nation podcast to be able to share ideas like this. What does leadership look like at home? What does undivided attention look like at home? What does I'm available to be interrupted look like at home? What does be where your feet are look like at home? Because there's this humanality, we've created 11 pillars, and I touched upon it a little bit with you before. It's going to be an online system. But now that I'm thinking about it, there's application for the pillars at home, right? Be where your feet are is one of our pillars. It's pillar number two. Be where your feet are, which means avoid distractions, right? Someone came to knock at my home office door. I put it on mute just in case. My phone is on do not disturb. It's down and it's face down. I'm looking at the camera. You are the most important thing, Mitchell, right now. You and your listeners are the most important thing to me right now. Great. Imagine going home after an 8-hour day, 10-hour day, 12-hour day, and giving the same attention to your children, to your wife, to your partner, to your spouse, to your friends, to your dog. Imagine how valuable that would be, how it
mhm.
would make them feel. Right?
Yeah.
Life changing, right? Life changing.
Yeah.
So we should try it.
Yeah.
Try, it's a reminder to me too, Mitchell, but I'm suggesting for any listeners right now, when you get home or if you're working from home, give the person and your in your house undivided attention. Be where your feet are. Make them feel and know that they are the most important thing to you. No
Yeah.
distractions. You are where your feet are.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you,
Oh,
Mitchell?
absolutely. And any listener to the show would have heard "Be Where Your Feet Are" several times, because that's something I talk about a lot as well. When you're in the boardroom, be there. When you're in the living room playing with your kids, be there. When you're in the bedroom with your wife, be there. Like, you don't. It's so difficult these days, and so it's such a good piece of advice, and it's so important. And I think this idea of being interruptible. Yeah, I think as a father, as a husband, it's so. One of my mentors said to me, and I adopted this as well. It was profound. He's like, I don't care where I am, what I'm. He was a pastor
Mm.
and preached regularly in front of 2,000 people. Any given Sunday. And he said, every single one of my kids know if they need me, they can come get me. They can
Wow.
walk straight up on a stage in front of 2,000 people and say, Daddy, I need you. He's like,
Mm.
I don't care where I am, who I'm talking to, doesn't matter. If my kids need me, they can interrupt me because they are
Yeah.
my priority. I was like, wow, so powerful. And I love that you went there, because that's so good. I'll never forget. And I, unfortunately, this conversation has happened multiple times, but the first time I had a conversation with one of my clients, who's an entrepreneur running multiple businesses, and he was wrestling with like anger, frustration, irritability, a lot of pressures from work.
Mhm.
And one time in one of our sessions, we were talking about his evening rhythms and his routines. And he said, we finish up dinner and I go back into the office and I go to work, and my son keeps coming in at like 6:30, and he wants to throw the ball, and he just keeps interrupting me. And I say to him, I'm working. I'm working. What do I do about that, Mitch? Because then I get irritated, I get frustrated.
Mm.
And in that moment, Bar said to him, I'm like, have you ever considered that perhaps your son is the work in that moment? Right? That he is the mission, that he is the call, that he is
Well,
your purpose. And like, perhaps you're getting it twisted, because no man is designed to work 24 hours around the clock. But what message are you sending to your son when you're constantly saying, no, please get out of my office, get out of my office? You know what I mean? I'll throw the ball with you tomorrow. It's saying to him, my work is more important than you. Right now, this
mhm.
hits home for me because this is very raw for my childhood as well. And so, because my father wasn't around very much, so but that's the mistake we get caught in, and we
Yeah.
think that we don't have control. And so, and he's like, well, I can't do that. I say, I can't take 6:30 to 8:30 off of work. So says who? You're in control. You're running 3 businesses. You're the boss. You get to do, and this comes back to the knowledge and the wisdom,
Right.
right? And this idea of understanding you are in control, and you get to decide what you want out of your life, and you will get what you tolerate. That's another phrase we
Yes.
talk about. You will
Yeah.
get what you tolerate. You tolerate your clients running your schedule, you're going to get a lot more of it. You tolerate
Yeah.
being disrespected by your kids, you're going to get a lot more of it, right?
Well, choose.
And
Yeah.
so it's, yeah,
Yes. Yeah. We choose. We choose. And there's a story. Sorry to interrupt you, Mitchell. I'm
no.
so what you're saying. There was a story. Coordinator that we used to work with was living overseas, and every single morning she would send me a message through WhatsApp. Good morning, Bart. How are you? And this was several months ago. And one morning I woke up and I chose to be grumpy, and I started to respond on my phone. I was going to be terrible this morning. That's how I'm going to respond. Terrible. How are you? Good morning, Bart. How are you? Terrible. TERR. And then the most amazing thing happened. The universe started to autocorrect my input. And what do you think it was going to offer me? I could choose to be terrible, or it gave me a choice. Terrific. And I pressed the terrific button, and it made me laugh, and it shocked me out of my little rut that I was in, realizing I had a choice. I could be terrible and grumpy, or I could hit a button like the universe wanted me to be, and I could be terrific. So
Mm,
we all have a choice. We just need to remember that. And the story that you were sharing with your one particular client reminds you of a gentleman very successful within an organization, retired early, senior vice president. And I was asking him about his career progression and if he had any regrets. He said that he stepped on way too many people climbing up the corporate ladder, and he regrets it. So he does mentoring right now. But another thing that he said he will never forget, it was evening, home office, and his son came in to try to interrupt him. And he said, It's very similar to your client. Not now. I'm working, and basically slammed the door kind of toward him, not in his face, but slammed the door. And he said, Bart, I will never forget that moment because my 8-year-old son needed me for something. Whether it was important or not, it didn't matter. He needed me for something. He said, Bart, I don't remember what that call was about. I don't remember what project I was working on.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter. Right? He retired from that company 10 years ago. None of that stuff matters. But what matters is how he made his son feel by ignoring him, by not seeing him, by shutting the door on him. And please, listeners, listen to these things and let it sink in and let it hurt, because we have the ability right now to be available, to be interrupted for our family members, just like you do at work. Right? You put so much into it, and you're doing your KPIs and you're doing your annual reviews. Well, when was the last time you sat down with your wife and just said, is there anything that you need from me?
Mm.
Is there anything that you need from me?
Hey, brother, if you are listening to this show, you've most likely built a successful career. You handle pressure, you lead teams, and you get results. But when was the last time you really connected with your wife beyond the calendar, the kids, and the to-do list? Well, if that sounds like you, I have a free gift for you today called the Connection Code. Which are 50 questions to break the silence, spark the fun, and bring the fire back. These questions are going to help you learn what she truly desires from you, to break out of the routine and to rediscover fun, and to spark deeper passion and connection without forcing awkward conversations. Listen, most men assume their wives feel loved, but the best husbands ask great questions and keep the connection alive. So if your date nights feel more like board meetings, and if you've gone from soulmates to roommates, and I want you to download this connection code for free and start the kind of conversations that bring you closer tonight. You can grab your copy at dadnationcode.com/code or hit the link in the show notes below. All right, let's get back into it.
What a nice little question.
Mhm.
Anything that you need from me? Yeah, I need you to help around the house a little bit more. I need you to make sure that you're cutting the grass. I need to make sure that you're putting the plates away. I want to make sure that you're taking the kids to school. Thank you, right? Because if we don't ask those questions, our wives might not ever tell us. And so ask that question, which is another pillar. It's pillar number 3, which is crazy, Mitchell, that we're going almost in order of our humanality, making people feel cared for, valued, seen, and heard. It's just ask.
Yeah.
Right? How you feeling today? Just ask. Is there anything you need from me? You do it at work. Do it at home, for goodness sakes.
Mm-hmm.
Ask. It's the same question. Is there anything you need from me? Yeah, Dad, whenever you come home, you don't really spend much time with us. You go right back to the basement and start doing stuff. You're right. You're right. What could I do better? You could spend time with us, Dad. I have a new board game that I want to play with you. All right,
Yeah.
let's do it. And
Yeah.
those are things that, talking about legacy, those are the things that your kids are going to remember. And then that makes you the man or the human being that can be proud when you're at a funeral singing a song for someone else. Yeah, I'm a good man, right? I'm a good human being. I'm a good person.
Yeah.
I'm a caring person. I'm a kind person.
Yeah.
That's what we all should strive to be, Mitchell.
Yep. 100%. 100%. I'm with you, Bart. It's, have you ever heard of Solomon's paradox before?
Remind me, please.
Okay, so it's real simple. My listeners have heard me talk about it before, but it explains the reason why we can't seem to coach ourselves, why we get stuck, and we can't give ourselves great advice. And it's just based off of really a bunch of different psychological studies that were done over the last few different decades. But what happens is, what they would do is bring in couples and bring in people from all different walks of life, and they'd interview them. So, for example, there was one study done where there was a woman who came in from a domestic abuse situation, another one, a couple that was in an enormous amount of financial debt, another one who was morbidly obese. And so they interviewed them, and they said with the person who was in a battered physical relationship where she was getting abused, they said, okay, what's going on? And she's telling the situation, and then they hear everything, and then they go back, behind the mirror, and then they whitewash all the details, okay? And they take all the names away, take out some of the details, they mix it around, and they go back to these same people, and then they interview them, and they say, we have this couple that needs some help getting out of debt. What would you advise that they do? And then they go to the other person. We have this person who's been really struggling with their weight for many, many years. How would you advise them to lose the weight? Time after time, Bart, these people knew exactly what they needed to do, and they had all the right steps, to do that thing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but they just couldn't do it themselves. And the reasons why it's called Solomon's paradox is because it's based off of the biblical character of Solomon, who was known to be one of the most wealthy, wise men who ever lived. For everyone else, he would have kings and rulers come from all over the world to speak with him, but yet his own personal life was a disaster. And so the Solomon's paradox explains why we get caught when not being able to take our own advice. It's like we can't see the full picture because we're stuck in the frame. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so like we see everyone else's life through a telescope, but we see our own lives through a microscope. And we're staring at the fear and the anxiety and the frustration and all those different things. And so there's one thing to know what you should do, but there's a whole nother thing to actually do it. And so what you were saying, Bart, is this idea of like getting there, ask the question. I love questions. So for example, with clients of mine or my community, I'll say, you know what, if you're parking in the driveway, take 2 minutes, ask yourself this question. It's called externalizing. Ask yourself this question. What does it look like to show up as a loving husband when you walk through that door? And if you honestly ask yourself that question, you know the answer. Then you're going to ask yourself, what does it look like to be a present father when you go through the door? Does it mean that you keep scrolling through your emails while your son is playing on the floor with his toys? Yeah. Or does it mean that you turn your phone off at the door and you get down and play with him? Does it mean you pass your family and go up and grab a shower? Or does it mean that you beeline it and kiss your wife on the mouth and hug her and say you love her? And then, you know what I mean? And so it's like when we intentionally ask ourselves the question and take ourselves out of the frame, we inherently know the answer. But us as men, we get stuck in that because of that Solomon's paradox. It's pretty interesting, hey?
It's very, and in fact, I did not know that term, so thank you for sharing it with me. But there's an example of an exercise that I do, and I just got back from presenting at a kindness conference in Cancun, and we did this exercise. And the exercise is called the invisible backpack. And Mitchell, and to your listeners, you can do this exercise, of course, at home while you're listening. But the invisible backpack, to me, it means that there are things that we carry, backpack, that weigh heavy on us, on our shoulders, on our minds, in our hearts. Heavy, heavy backpack. There's things inside, but no one can see them because it's invisible. You can't see what's inside. It's an invisible backpack. So we ask individuals to write down one thing that they carry with them, a worry, a concern, or a fear. Just one thing on the first sheet of paper, one thing. And then the second part of the process is, okay, flip it over. Now, if you had a friend that had that worry, concern, or fear that was in their invisible backpack, you had a friend that had that, what advice would you give them? What suggestions would you have? And literally, it takes flipping over that piece of paper, Mitchell, to overcome Solomon's paradox. Thank you for teaching me to be able to come up with that answer. So one lovely lady, I'm going to give a shout out to Maddie Dowdle. She's a travel advisor based in Pennsylvania. She was vulnerable enough to write down what she carries every single day. The world tells me I'm too much. She's too flamboyant. She's too loud. She's too crazy. She's too energetic. She's too much. That's what she wrote down. Then she flipped it over and she wrote this, and it's going to give me goosebumps again. I am the perfect amount of much for this world. Your worry is the world tells me I'm too much. No, you are the perfect right amount of much for this world. And do not ever change, Maddie. Do not ever change. Sometimes, right, it takes that exercise. And dude, I got to do it myself, right? I was had an amazing opportunity, and I thought they were going to pick me, and I was down to the final 3, and they picked someone else. So I'm writing down, I was not good enough for that group in San Francisco. That's what I wrote down. That was in my backpack for 24 hours until I decided to overcome Solomon's paradox, pull out a piece of paper and write down, I am good enough. They chose someone that had a different topic than me, And they sent me a follow-up email that I just got that said they can't wait to work with me sometime next year.
Mm.
Wow. So that worry was for nothing. That heaviness was for nothing. I knew the solution. I just had to write it down. And so for your listeners, right, my suggestions, if you don't know the solution to what's in your invisible backpack, reach out to Mitchell, listen to his podcast, reach out to me, reach out to friends and resources that can help you, right? Figure out what is the solution. You probably know it, but if you can't get there, next exercise we did is if people got stuck, they worked as a table. I can't overcome this one thing that's in my backpack. I'm worried about losing my job and losing my benefits because my 90-year-old mother relies on me for financial stability. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what the solution is. What could the solution be? The group of table got together, and what do you think they could have come up with, Mitchell?
Mm.
It was, right? You will figure it out. You've always figured it out. You have great resources. If you ever lose your job, you're going to get another one that probably pays even more. You have $400,000 saved up in your bank accounts. You could tap into financial assistance. You could, like, that's the solution. But when you get so emotional, you don't know what the solution is. So it really takes you out of your Solomon's paradox to be able to come up with a great answer. Thank you
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful concept that really explains why we wrestle to take our own advice, because that's the thing. And I was talking to a client earlier today, and I'm like, listen, you don't need more information. You don't need another book. You don't need a YouTube video. And I've said this in previous episodes. If information were enough, everyone who ever watched a YouTube video on wealth generation would become a millionaire. Everyone who read a book on marriage would turn it all around. Right? Obviously, that's not the situation. We're in no shortage of information. I think it was Tony Robbins said, we are a generation that's starving, or we're drowning in information, but starving for wisdom. And I think that's so critical for our day and age. And so with that being said, as you're listening to this, brother, wherever you are, whether you're driving on the highway, you're in the gym, you're doing some chores, you're cutting the grass, whatever it is, I want you to just take a moment and observe what is happening right now. You've just listened to two men who would consider to be career-driven, successful, high performers, whatever, have spent their lives really dialing these things in. And we have had a conversation about our weaknesses, about our failures, about our struggles, and all those different things. That is normal. That is okay. And I tell you what, talking about these things, if you're listening to this today and you carry nothing away from this conversation, that is not weakness, it's wisdom. Okay? And every wise man understands that. Every leader needs a leader. Every coach needs a coach. We need people in our corner to support us and to help us. So listen, Bart, thank you so much for joining us. I do have one last question for you, okay? I want to tell people about your work and where they can find more of you. Yeah, I know you got the podcast, you got the book. So tell us, man, for anyone who wants to just take in more of Bart, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, you bring up some really interesting points, Mitchell, with that conclusionary statement that there's plenty of resources out there and right wisdom, and there's information. The difference is doing it, and
Yes.
that's what we talk about. Most people don't, but you do. Most people don't, but you can. So if you are willing to do what most people are not doing, seek the advice, become vulnerable, open up, listen to resources, implement action items, ask yourself those questions before you go inside when you're sitting in the driveway. Most people don't do those things. So Mitchell, all they need to do is do one, right? Do one and see how it makes you feel. Do one action items, take a step toward doing what most people don't. So if they want to learn more about me, and again, would be honored to have you on our podcast, they can find everything at mostpeopledon't.com. It's all one word. There's no apostrophe, mostpeopledon't.com. I am the only Bart Berkey in the world. So if you Google Bart, B-A-R-T, Berkey, you're probably going to find me in a whole lot of different places. The greatest ask that I have is we have a nice community as well. There's an option to sign up for our newsletter on our website. We share stories every single week. We feature our podcast guests. So whenever Mitchell can agree to be on our show. You're going to see a clip of him and what we learned from him. Just sign up for the newsletter. If something today helped to inspire you, and again, I'm so grateful, Mitchell, for what you're doing with the Dad Nation podcast, bringing messages that matter to people that need to hear it. So grateful.
Thank you so much, Bart. And yes, I'm going to take you up on that offer. I think we have a recording scheduled late this week or next, something like that. But it's going to be a powerful conversation. I can't wait to join you on your podcast to speak about that, what most people don't do. And I love that frame. That was what hooked it for me when I spoke with you, Bart. I'm like, that's exactly what we talk so much about. Most men don't. Most men don't do this, and this. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Right? Not just for you, but for your wife and for your children and for their children and for their children, right? It's powerful. So thank you so much for being on the show today, Bart. Just appreciate your time. It's been an honor and a privilege to speak with you today.
No, my pleasure. You're a heck of a gentleman. Keep it up. Thank you for what you do, Mitchell. Appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel, where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. Remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.